Hi guys, welcome to this little video or academic lecture on a great novel in the Western literary tradition called Don Quixote, which was written in two parts by Miguel de Cervantes. It was written in 1604 as well as in 1614, and these two parts, when taken together, form what is probably the first novel in the Western literary tradition. Henry James titled this novel Large, Loose, Baggy Monster, and as I did a lecture last time on Melville, I told you that it is among those novels that cries out for an editor. So with Don Quixote, it really cries out for an editor because it's so long, and sometimes it would have been better if we thought of it as a novel which was shorter than as long as it is. There are lots of digressions in the novel, so that the reader sometimes loses the thread of the narrative, but I'm not sure there are any readers of this novel among my audience, because the version that we have in English right now is over 1,000 pages. There are different translations. One by Burton Raphael is a recent translation, very lively one, and the other one by the 18th century scholar named Charles Jarvis is again 1,000 pages. But I really suggest that you read the Charles Jarvis translation, although I'm sure that none of you will ever do that. But I give you a couple of principles as well as morals from this book so that you might be stirred in the direction of reading it. There is something that I have to tell you about the main theme of this novel, one of which is companionship. The companionship of the main figures, Sancho Panza and Don Quixote, is reflected throughout later literature. It itself comes from Patroclus and Achilles in Homer's Iliad because they're friends, and we see it later in novels such as Robinson Crusoe with his friend Friday, who he finds in the island, and also in novels like Huckleberry Finn with his black friend Jim. And then later in the 20th century, in the Depression, during the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, we find these two characters again appear in the form of Casey and Tom. Those of you who have read these novels know what I'm pretty much talking about, but not all of you are interested in such stuff, so I'll give you up, not entirely for lust, but almost for lust. There are different animals in these novels. The two main characters each possesses one animal. Particularly, Don Quixote has a horse named Rocinante, and Sancho Panza's little donkey, fat donkey, is called Dapple. At one point, they fall into a well down the earth. And I'm personally a sucker for those novels that in which animals play a role, like for example Charles Dickens' great novel of 1854 called Hard Times, or even Ulysses by James Joyce, which has a dog named Gary Owen in the 12th chapter by the Citizen. Since Don Quixote is a big fat tome, I'm going to pick three things that are important for any reader who wants to get a quick review of the whole novel. So at least learn these three things, so that those of you who have not who don't have all that time at your disposal to read this big novel, learn these three things. The first one comes from one of the chapters late in the novel called it is the possessor of riches, and I'm reading that section. What Don Quixote says. It says, "The possessor of riches is not rendered fortunate but by having them, but by spending them, and not by spending them as he pleases, but by knowing how to spend them well." This is the first lesson that we get from Don Quixote. The second one is about the comparison between comedy and the world. The play of the world is a very brilliant title by Harold Bloom in one of the essays. At one point, Don Quixote tells us as readers, he says, "The same thing happens in comedy as it happens in the world. Some play emperors, others popes, and in fact every part that could be introduced into play. But when it comes to the when it comes to the end, which is when life is over, death strips us all of them, of the roles that distinguish them. They are equals all in the grave." Wonderful, wonderful. And then we have, in this last section, the rod of justice, which is a wonderful phrase, I believe. And later in the novel, Don Quixote says, in book 2, of course, he gives us a political sermon and says, "If you should chance to bend the rod of justice, do not let it be with the weight of a bribe, but with that of pity." That's Don Quixote in a nutshell. I think if you pick up these three morals from this novel, you have pretty much walked away with whatever you need. Otherwise, I think I'll send you off the direction of this novel. You should go through it page by page and devour it. Thanks very much. I hope that this little piece has been useful. I'll come back to you soon and prepare another lecture on another great novel. Thank you.